Here comes the best, the most well-rounded, best-smelling, nothing off-limits podcast in the world. Welcome to Quadcast with Kortney Olson, the woman with the world's deadliest thighs. Let's get ready to mumble.
I posted something to a couple of other friends who are super middle ground, right? And they're, do their best to pull me back from the ledge. And I came across this woman that was in Target. And she was in the children's section, and they have all the pride stuff in there in the toddler section. But like when she was looking at the tags, it was talking about tucking and a slightly binding.
Tucking swimsuits.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
And were they selling breast binders in there as well?
Yeah. I was like, okay.
I'm going back to the Middle East.
Yeah. You're gonna.
I'm not even being hyperbolic. I'm literally like, what is?
I'll ask you about that. I would love to hear that aspect from you, especially saying, as a Christian, I think that's brilliant.
You've got to move to an Islamic country for.
Right, and then I would love to reiterate what you're talking about with freedoms and stuff. But I said, well, what's this about? And he said, well, look, it's greed more than anything. They see that there's a market and they're selling to it, right? And it's, from cigarettes to alcohol to clothes, our country is set up to exploit kids. Mm-hmm. And he said, I just read that the marriage age in Hawaii and Kansas is 15. 25 other states have it at 16. So much for, quote unquote, protecting the kids. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, shit, that's interesting too. Where I'm like, so sometimes I feel like I do get caught up and I go down these, I won't say rabbit holes, but intuitively, and I can't fight that, but intuitively, and I've felt this way since I started researching, if you will, all these different concepts of like, do people understand where the Federal Reserve came from and who was on the fucking Titanic? Oh, the 3 wealthy bankers that opposed it, and who didn't get on the Titanic and managed to live, and then what happened with that secret meeting, and what does the Federal Reserve even mean, and on and on and on and on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right? So it's like, ever since then, I feel like just something is not right. Mm-hmm. And so, I suppose it's good and to look at all points, but at the end of the day, I have an issue with the children being able to consent. Remember when Mario Lopez made a statement about this in 2019, and he quote unquote got canceled for a minute.
Yes.
He was like, I don't think kids should be.
I was so angry that he apologized. I was like, don't apologize. Man. Never apologize to these people. Don't bend the knee.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't say anything wrong. Stand by it.
And that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, look, something we hear over and over and over, and I've been going in and out of 12-step recovery since I was 21 when I went to rehab. I started using when I was 17, and I thought the driver was my body image because, remember I told you I wanted to be Kate Moss, and finding meth was like the holy grail. As your ASB president, captain of the cheerleading team at a private Catholic high school in a Christian rock band, started the first girls golf team, 4.0 GPA, went straight to meth because I was so desperate to be thin. But that was because I was raised by an alcoholic, and the trauma, I hate that word, trauma. It's so loaded.
It's overused now.
It is. Yeah. But the, upbringing that we have from those ages of 0 to 7, 0 to 8, have such a massive impact on us and the decisions that we make, right? That it was those experiences that was actually the driving force. It was just the body image that was the upper layer of it. But in saying that, what you hear time and time again in recovery is that I never felt comfortable in my skin. I never felt accepted or a part of. It's this idea that we're all like individuals when really we are all connected through God. And God's a loaded word. That might mean something different to you versus me. And somebody might think of a white, guy up in the sky with a robe. Whereas I'm pretty sure Jesus was like...
Most people don't actually think that.
No.
It's so funny. It's kind of like this straw man thing of, the magical sky daddy thing. Do you know where I think people get that from is from paintings. right?
Yeah.
Because when you...
Or is it the Old Testament?
No, because the Old Testament doesn't have like a description of, God's appearance, right? It's just I think it's the paintings. It's because if you look back at those, I don't even know the era, is it Renaissance or medieval? There's those old paintings or even stained glass windows, right? And they have, God in the sky with a white flowing beard. And, there's what's the super famous one where he's reaching out?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's where like people have this image of like, oh, Christians just imagine God as this like guy in the sky with this long beard kind of, or maybe even the image of Zeus.
Yes.
I think it's like the image of Zeus. And so people kind of, but yeah, like I think most religious people don't explicitly think of God as like,
right, up in the sky with
you look up in the sky and he's there with his beard kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, that's just what was the point you were?
Yeah, exactly. I was just
I just thought of that
thing.
because so many people just say that, and I'm like, I don't think most people really think of. I don't even really like visualize God when I think of God. Yeah.
I was like, God, Jesus was from the Middle East. I think he was probably had brown skin, but I don't know where I was going with that originally. Yeah. Other than it somehow started back at the beginning where I was talking about children and Mario Lopez getting canceled. But again, going back to never feeling comfortable in your own skin, and I think, my gosh, growing up, I had such bad body dysmorphia. Mm-hmm. I was so anxious post-divorce, being bullied, being raised by an alcoholic in a situation where you'd never have any kind of stability. Or, I even drove with my mom up to Garberville this last weekend, and even sitting in the passenger seat with her driving, I'm like, well, this is bizarre. Because I remember so many nights, just crunched down in the corner of the car praying, being like, God, please make it home. Please don't let me die. Because she was always hammered and in a blackout, right? So you can feel that stuff come up. But it's like, we're not giving kids tools to process shit. And you look at what we've just put through so many of them through for the last 2.5 years, right? This is legit PTSD. They thought the fucking world was going to end. And it turned into this mass hysteria and this big psyop and whatever. But my point being, my experience with testosterone, let's say, like, so I've had 2 shots of testosterone in my life, and that was for my libido. Okay. 0 libido. That shit straight fucked off after like 30 years old. And then I have been all natural up until 2015, because that was like my shtick, was all natural KO. All right, I was super against like fake titties in the bodybuilding world, because I'm like, why, girl? It looks like they just took plungers and stuck that shit on your chest. You know what I mean? Like, come on, it's ridiculous. So avoided that, and then finally in 2015, I got on my first cycle, and the impact. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but it was still enough to. I started having like these weird obsessive thoughts that somebody was going to hit me on the way to the gym. Now that I was getting pretty ripped up, and you experience the mood swings. My partner, watching him, I mean, obviously he was taking more than he should have, but the impact that had on him in terms of his mood swings and well-being, and and then of course coming off of it, and then even my experience with hormone replacement therapy, and how there's kids that are saying, I've seen these screenshots of them saying, like, oh, it's safer than Tylenol. And I'm like, okay. And then I have to stop and think, and I'm like, is this real, or are these bot accounts? You know what I'm saying? Like, everything to me, I'm just like, is it fact or fiction, or what is going on? But I know you're so much more in the middle of it and experiencing and hearing. That was the other thing too, is I've seen posts and you saying I've had permission to share of what's happened with parents. So I think that might have been one of the first tweets that I saw that caught my eye again. And I was like, wow, this is really fascinating, because you're hearing this firsthand.
It makes me really sad, honestly. Even you telling your story, like, I've like my sympathy, my condolences for some I'm sure I've only heard a fraction of what you've been through and lived through. And
makes me stronger, baby.
It does. I'm very, it's funny because I'm not a father yet. But I'm very, very protective of children.
Yes.
And I'm very concerned on multiple levels, from the scamdemic angle to this whole trans angle to the way that schools in this country are being shot up to I don't think that I don't think our societies are adequately protecting children. And I think that any society that prioritizes the needs, desires, wants, egos, self-obsession of adults over what's best for children is fundamentally broken. And this is what we are doing, right? Think of that whole 2 years we lived through from 2020 to 2022, right?
Right.
It was sacrifice the children, harm the children to pretend to save the most neurotic percentage of adults even out there. Not even adults in general, but just like the most neurotic ones who are like most easily scared and whatever, right? So we'll sacrifice, who cares if the kids can't go to school? Who cares if we're shoving masks on them or forcing stuff into their veins? Who cares if they can't see their friends? Who cares that, I'm scared, so we need to do all this, right? It's a complete inversion of how a society is supposed to work. Any healthy society prioritizes children above adults, right? The needs and safety of children comes first. Screw your adult whims, your desires, your wants, whatever. The kids come first. They're more important. That's the next generation. And our society has become so selfish and narcissistic and solipsistic that this has become inverted, right? The random desires of, a grown man or a grown woman, their selfish desires, their delusions, their whatever, that is taking priority over what's actually best for children. And that greatly worries me. Like that freaks me out, because children are literally the future, but also children are so impressionable, so weak and helpless and malleable and whatever. You can get a kid to believe anything.
Santa
Right?
Claus, bitch.
You can right? Like, so children are, we know this. Children are malleable, they're impressionable. And people who are pushing some of these wicked things also know that. That's why they're pushing it on children. It's why they're trying to catch your kids early on, get them in school, hit them with their propaganda, whatever. And I'm like, to me, the Bible says, like these people deserve to have a millstone put on them and put in the water, right? Like this, like anyone who is pushing some of this stuff or doing some of this stuff to children, I'm like, how on earth is that even tolerated? That is crazy to me. That's just a line you don't cross. Like, I'm pretty libertarian. I get that. Look, if you're an adult, within reason, if you're not hurting other people, kind of do what you want to do. Or it should be at least don't get the state involved. Like, I get that. But when it comes to children, like, this is a different story. Like, it's a totally different story. And this never used to be argued. This never used to be a left-right issue. This never used to be a red-blue. It wasn't political. It's not political. Like, nothing I've even said this whole podcast, none of it's political. Like, these are not political things. Like, why are these even, quote, you're being conservative, or, these are Republican talking points. I'm like, what do you, it's common sense.
Because there's plenty of Christians that are Democrats, right?
But it's like also in 2010, which is not that long ago.
Right.
None of this was a conversation.
Right.
No one was doing this podcast in 2010.
Right.
Like even the most liberal person, the most lefty, progressive, whatever. If you went to them in 2010 and were like, yeah, men can have penises and menstruate, right? And like men should compete in women's sports. And they'd be like, what are you even talking about?
Right.
They would have thought it was crazy, right? Just go back to Obama era, right? Like no one was pushing all this stuff. So it's like in under a decade, all of a sudden, you turn on TV, you're on social media, you're on this, you're on that, even this podcast, like, we're having these conversations, and I'm like, how is this a conversation? How is there a conversation about whether or not a child should be able to, remove their perfectly healthy breasts, or go on cross-sex hormones, or have their puberty stopped, or do this or do that? Like, it wasn't a thought. When, the idea that you'd put a man in a female prison.
That part,
but there have literally been situations, I think there was one recently in New Jersey, where a male criminal who's going to prison for sexual assault and rape is being housed in this person says, I identify as a woman, and you're like, okay, we'll put you in with the females. Like that sounds like, it doesn't even sound like, it sounds like a South Park episode, right?
100%. 100%. I don't understand.
I don't get how anyone can think, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's a good idea. That's safe. That's fair. Yeah, those women are going to feel safe. Like, it's bananas. I can't even. I can't even fathom that I'm like saying it.
Right.
I'm like, how is this a thing? How is this a thing?
You're exactly right. It's like, how the fuck did we wind up here in this short span of time?
Mm-hmm.
And like Janae was saying, she said there was some polling institution that, because gay marriage is no longer a talking point and it's not a hot button.
And that's when it all went crazy.
In the political scene. And then now, just saying, and now it's this.
I do think there's a connection there, by the way, a massive one.
Yeah.
Which no one ever states.
Stay it.
Sure. So we were saying that this inflection point was around 2012.
Right.
So I think what happened is, if you think from the socially progressive left, their big fight in all the years leading up to that was for same-sex marriage, right? For that to be recognized by states and I guess at a federal level. Not just here, by the way, also in the UK. I don't know what the rules were in Canada, but in a lot of the Western countries. And that was the big push. That all the activists, the LGBT activists, that was the push. And then once that was won, they're like, okay, what's next? Where does all that energy go? Where does all that activism, all those people, all that funding for all these LGBTQ plus organizations, like, where does that all go? And this is when they maniacally latched onto this whole transgenderism thing, right? Like, the LGBTQ, like it's not even about the L, the G. The L, the G's, the B's, like, they don't even care anymore, right? Like, it's all about the T these days. And I can't help but notice that after that legislation passed, it's like that is when this whole massive push went. So I think it's I don't know if you know the author Douglas Murray. He's called this concept St. George in retirement syndrome, which is the idea, St. George, he's slayed all the dragons, and he's now, you've still got the sword, and you're looking for new dragons to slay, right? So a lot of the excesses of the modern left are based on this idea of, look, all the actual genuine civil rights battles to fight for genuine equality under the law have been fought and have been won, right? Racially, between the sexes, gay people have every single right and privilege and whatever that straight, like, it's done. Not globally, right? But within our countries, if you're in the UK, if you're in the, like, what law is saying that someone of a certain race or gender or sexuality, whatever, can't do, like, those laws are gone. They used to exist. They're gone. But you still have this energy. You still have this money. You still have these activists. You have the people who want to fight for something. And this is just the issue that they have latched onto. And so all these people who are now pushing all this stuff, I think that's why. It's just like they don't even know what to, and I think they've picked a really stupid battle. But this is just where we are now.
Yeah.
Because, if someone can point out a law in the books to me that's like genuinely discriminatory against like a demographic, I'd love to see it. I'm not aware. I can only think of one, actually. I can think of one. Or actually, no, okay. I can think of a couple between the sexes, but I can only think of one that's like a law on the books. Two factors. I can think of one. One is, it's going to sound stupid. Men can be topless in public, right? I don't know if women can be. I mean, if women want to fight for the right to be, show their boobs in public, I don't think men are going to put up a massive fight, but that's like the only one I can like think of. And then I guess some stuff that's, biased against men in terms of like, divorce and alimony and child support, that kind of stuff, right? But I don't know what the explicit laws on the books are, but there's definitely a disproportionate effect there. But outside of that, it's like, look, people out there on the street, fighting for freedom, fighting for rights. It's like, you've already got all the rights. Like, what else do you want? This is what I talk about, the pandemic of narcissism. It's like, now you don't want rights anymore.
You just want to be right.
No, you want privileges and benefits. You want more. You don't want to be equal. You want to be better. You want to be superior. You want to have privileges that other people don't, right? Like, I don't get to pick my own freaking pronouns. Can I pick my adjectives? Can every time you refer to Zuby, you say, the handsome, intelligent, and buff Zuby, right? Because I like to be described as handsome, buff, and intelligent. But if someone refuses to call me that, is that my bad or is that their bad? Like, am I the one making the reasonable command, right? If I'm here saying, I want to be called 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗓, right? And someone is like, no, I'm not calling you that. I'm like, and then I get mad at them. Like, is that my bad?
Right.
Or is that there? But like, that's my bad. That's my issue to deal with. You can't live in a world where everybody affirms you all the time. That's not reality.
Right.
Right? Like, it's not reality. You might want people to view you a certain way or refer to you a certain way or whatever. And of course we have decent, general decency and politeness and whatever, but you don't have a fundamental right to tell people and make demands, let alone have them punished for not referring to you explicitly how you want to be. It just doesn't go like that. And if you're an adult, you should understand that and recognize there's 8 billion people in this world, and this right thing is a two-way street. And people also have a right to, freedom of association and a right to freedom of speech. And you don't need to be friends with everyone. You don't need to associate with everyone. You don't need to whatever, but you just can't make these, that's what I'm saying. The demands are ludicrous. And these are demands that other people are not making. Right? Like
That's exactly right.
No, you can't just go out and make these demands. You can ask politely. You could say, hey, you know what? I would prefer to be called X, and each person can individually decide. Right. If I say, hey, I'd prefer to be referred to as Your Highness, each individual can decide whether or not they will refer to me as such, but I cannot make a demand, let alone try to push to make a law that you have to call me by my preferred whatever. It's also just not how the language fundamentally works. Language doesn't work under the idea that you have like your own nouns, adverbs, pronouns, adjectives. Like, no, that's not how a language functions. A language functions for accuracy of information and to convey certain ideas, right? When I say, oh, she, that is understood to be, oh, okay, you are referring to a female person, a girl or a woman, right? If I say he, it means, okay, I'm referring to, if I say his, okay, like I'm denoting possession, a male possessing something, right? A boy or a man possessing something. It's not like, oh, you get your own version of that. This is why the pronoun thing is so goofy, because like you don't get your own pronouns. Just like you don't get your own adjectives, you don't get your own adverbs, whatever. Like that's not how the language works. What's more narcissistic than trying to fundamentally change the way the whole language actually works to appease your mood, your feelings, your whatever? It's like, look, and if that is triggering to you, then grow up.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, I don't care. Like, if that's the thing that's, if you're, because people are like, oh, people are going to go and commit suicide. I'm like, bro, look, sorry, this is going to sound harsh. I mean this in the least harsh way possible. But if someone is going to be driven to suicide or quote unquote by being called a pronoun they don't prefer, like if someone calling me her, I'm actually a man for the record, right? If someone calling me her is, how is that going to drive me to suicide? Like it's such a, I hate it when people speak like this because it's emotional blackmail, right? If you're saying that, look, if you don't use this language and you don't go along with this thing, you're going to be the cause of people taking their own lives. That is a wicked thing to say. It's false, and also it's like it's pure emotional blackmail, right? This is the thing of, I don't know, guys with a girl, and if you leave me, I'll commit suicide. It's like, whoa, like it's emotional blackmail. You can't do that to people.
That's a really fascinating comparison, like, because that does happen all the time.
It's emotional blackmail. It's not cool.
And when you say blackmail, because I always, I kind of started unpacking, and I don't know what your opinions are around this, of course, but like the white privilege thing. I said,
don't get me started.
I had a feeling, I look. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're already hour and 15, and we could be here another 2 hours.
Don't get me started on white privilege.
Right.
It's a bunk concept.
But when saying that, terms like blackmail or, whitewash, or I forget, I was watching a clip from Muhammad Ali.
Oh, are we not allowed to say them anymore?
The White House. No, it just, it makes me, you're like, surprise, bitch.
Is blackmail racist now?
Yeah, surprise, bitch. But it instantly, brings up something in my head. Yeah, where I'm like, right. So but you as a black man, or I don't know how you identify. Okay. I perceive you as a black man.
Okay.
Right? You can't
I'll let you
hang up the color of your skin, right? When you leave. And it's like, how has a group of people, even though you grew up in Saudi Arabia, right? But let's say in America, you know, since slavery, and there's a group of people who have been rallying for equality and, you know, not have this built-in prejudice from even myself. I'll hear the self-talk. Like if I see, you know, a young man with his pants hanging around down under his ass, I'm like, pull your fucking pants up. And then I'm like, oh, I'm tone policing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm becoming aware of all of this shit that I've had ingrained in me, or like how the media has programmed us all for like the shit we watched in the 80s, you know, all the bad guys are the Middle Eastern ones, or, you know, the gangsters are the black dudes or the Mexicans, or it's always the white dudes that come in and save everything. And like all that, the Project Mockingbird, you know, like the media has so much fucking control over us, and how, you know, as a group, this trans movement has just like bypassed
everybody
else. And so that's the part where I sit down and I scratch my head and I'm like, how did this?
You had a good run, ladies.
Yeah, like how?
the patriarchy is back.
Right. It's like as somebody said the other day, it's like, yeah, you got a dick. You're still winning. You're still winning. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yep. You know, and even when it comes to like the bathroom situation and people saying, well, it's not trans women, it's cis men dressed as women. I'm like,
what's the difference?
Okay, well, what's the right? And I'm like, well, where do you draw the line? Yep. And so you're saying, you know, if someone like J.K. Rowling getting fucking canceled because she's like, I've had assault and I've felt uncomfortable. And so boom, canceled. You're a bigot. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I've been sexually assaulted. A lot of women have. And you know, we can, if that thing's out, like with Leah Thomas in the locker room, if that thing's out, I'm going to feel fucking uncomfortable. I went to Zappos to visit their campus here in Las Vegas, and Tony Hsieh was, you know, real big on, you know, the culture of, you know, embracing the trans community, and they had gender neutral bathrooms, but they were stalls. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, cool, I have to pee, but if I had to take a shit right now, I'd just feel uncomfortable. I don't know why. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's just like what we all do.
Well,
but
you do know why.
Yeah.
We do know why. This is, you know, we're living in a time where like people are suddenly forgetting or pretending to forget things that are like really obvious. It's really jarring to me. Like we know that men and women are fundamentally different in myriad ways. And that's not only is that okay, that is good. That's basic. That's how we're a sexually dimorphic species. It's how we all exist. If men and women were the same, like we'd literally cease to exist, right? And sometimes it's not politically correct to point out certain things. And you know, it can cut both ways, right? It can cut both ways. There are things that are, you know, what, like 90% plus of violent criminals are men. Right? Majority of, you know, if a woman, there are very valid, are most men criminals? No. Are most men out there trying to harm women or whatever? No. Are there some men who are doing that? Yes. Have there always been? Yes. Will there always be? Yes. Do women, is it reasonable for women to exercise some caution, especially in vulnerable situations, changing rooms, etc., you know, and not want men in those spaces? Yes, like if someone came out and said that that's misandrist or that's sexist, I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, of course women are not going to want dudes in their changing rooms, right? This is not some complicated thing. Like, why should men and male and female prisoners, why should you not put men in female prisoners? I'm like, bro, it's not rocket science. Like, why are we forgetting all these things? Why are sports sex segregated to begin with?
Right, that's
right.
That part.
We just forgot that. Like
right,
all
the last 50 years of Title IX. Like.
Yeah, like we just forgot this. I mean, even before they knew what science was, they recognize males and females are different. We have different physiology. Men are bigger, they're taller, they're stronger, whatever. They might not even know why. They just are, right? We've known this forever, right? And it's just suddenly people are like questioning all this again and looking for, well, what's the science? What are the studies? I'm like, bro, stop. Like, if you need to study for that, you need to study to know that men and women are just, your brain has fallen out of your head. Right? Like I don't know. We live in this really weird time where like people are just, sometimes science and studies are cool, right? As long as they're not heavily biased or, funded by
Funded
people.
by, right,
yeah,
exactly.
Right. Like, there's a use for these things, but they shouldn't replace your own actual observation and your eyes and your ears and everything to be true. Right? If it's raining outside and I'm like, hey, it's raining outside, and someone's like, oh, where's your meteorology degrey? I'm like, bro, I don't need to be a meteorologist to tell you it is raining. Because people are there, oh, you're not a biologist. Like, do I need to be do I need to go and do a 4-year degree and get a biology degree and piece of paper to tell you, okay, I can now speak on the differences between males and females? It's like, bro, we live in the real world, right? Like you've been a woman for, I don't know your exact age.
41.
41 years. You've been a female for 41 years.
Yeah.
I've been a male for 36 years.
Yeah.
I've spent 0 days as a female, right? Except that 9-second video. You spent 0 days, right? Like, and we have mothers, we have fathers, we have sisters, we have brothers. Like we know, like there's two, like we exist in the world. There's 8 billion people. Oh, half are male, half are female. Right. We're aware of all these differences. It's so obvious, but then people want to like question, and it happens in so many things. It happens, when people are talking about, trying to achieve 50-50 gender balance in certain things. And it's like, that's not going to happen because men and women are different and have different interests.
Right.
You're not going to get 50-50 primary school teachers. You're not going to get 50-50 freaking lumberjacks. You're not going to get 50, like, we are different. You're not going to get a woman becoming the fastest or strongest person in the world. It's never going to happen. And that is fine. That's not a problem that needs to be fixed. It's just like, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And
It's funny. I have no, when something doesn't resonate, you can feel your stomach kind of knot up because I'm not your average girl, like I'm a bit psycho, and I'm evidently, according to a couple of mediums, which is obviously not in alignment with your beliefs, but this is my first lifetime as a female. And I'm like, kind of makes sense, I suppose. But
I think it's your first lifetime as a female.
Yeah, cool. I definitely one of the boys, but I and then I lean into like, oh, well, shit, if women, are capable of pushing a tiny baby out of a small hole, and it's the equivalent of like the pain of having every bone broken in their body, and then they forget and often do it again, right? And then I'm like, okay, so maybe that's just our social conditioning and programming from birth to say, oh, women are the weaker sex. And then again, if beliefs control everything and we're looking at quantum physics and all this kind of stuff, then perhaps there is more grounds to have more. But I'm like, no, shit's just getting too complicated. Yeah. And when you break it down at the end of the day and you start looking at the birth rates, because I'll tell you what, I missed my window, and I'm like, damn, I'm kind of bummed out.
Oh.
And I'm like, not that I felt like I've been fed a lie to be like, oh, do your boss bitch thing, but I'm like, I sacrificed
Millions of women have been.
Yeah, and I sacrificed the last 10 years.
I think our society lies so much to women. And I don't like that. Do you know something I dislike about a lot of these conversations? And it's so funny because, people will, say that I'm overly conservative on some of these things or overly traditionalist or whatever. But like, it's funny. Like, I think that one of my biggest problems with some of the excesses of feminism and even a lot of this trans conversation and whatever actually is that I think it's eradicating the special uniqueness and beauty of females.
Yeah.
Right. And there's someone out there who hears me say something like this and is going to think that, oh, Zuby thinks that women should just be, they start putting words in your mouth. Right.
I relate to you straight away. When you say that.
But I'm just saying there's always, but it's like,
you're going to piss somebody off.
Yeah, of course. Always. Like, I can't open my mouth or type something without doing so. But it's like, what it's actually done is it's tried to force fit women into the male mold. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So like with all the push with feminism, it's never been like, it's always, let's make women more like men. Like it's almost like men are the bar, like men are the standard when it comes to, why do they talk about the gender pay gap, right? It's, women should be earning as much as men. I'm like, should they? Why? No, they shouldn't. They actually shouldn't, right? And when I say that, I don't mean doing the exact same job for the exact same hours. Right. Yes, you should have equal pay in that sense. But if you take all the men in a society and you take all the women in a society and the amount they earned was actually equal, that's going to be a broken society, right? what about the, because what happens with the family? What happens with the family dynamic then, right? Women are literally get pregnant. Women give birth. Women breastfeed, whatever. Women need to take time off work. It doesn't make sense, all things considered, for the average woman to be working as many hours throughout the course of their lifetime as the average man. What men and women are attracted to is different. It's more important for a man to be capable of building resources than a woman, right? If you're asking a man, what are the top 5 things you're looking for in a woman? Income is never going to come up. You're going to go pull 100 guys and income's not going to be there. Women, like, income or ambition, or like they'll either, reason, like it'll be in there. And it should be, because it matters. Like, it's actually important, right? Like, why would a woman want to be with a guy who cannot even provide resources for herself or her family and doesn't even have the capability or the competence to do so, right? We're different. And I'm like, that's fine. And again, it's just this rejection of reality, right? It's the rejection of reality. The best thing you can do, I think, in a society, like in a truly liberal society, is what we've actually already done, which is that people have the freedom to make their choices. People have the freedom to make their choices. You don't have discriminatory barriers saying, hey, you're this race, this gender, this whatever, you're not allowed to do this thing, right? You don't have any of that. You have, look, anyone who can, it's meritocracy, right? Interest, meritocracy, like, cool. You've got the freedom to pursue what you want to pursue. Men have overall different desires and pursuits and proclivities than women do. Women have different ones from men, whatever. Great. Just let the chips fall where they fall. Let the chips fall where they fall, right? In long distance running, who's winning? Kenya, Ethiopia, Kenya. Is that a problem? Is that something we need to fix, right? Is there a Kenya bias, or are there just a lot of freaking Kenyans who are really good at long distance running? Right? But where are the Nigerians? Where are the Jews? Where are the Asians? Where are the Polish people? Like, who cares? It's like, let the chips fall where they fall, right? Is everyone allowed to run the race? Yes. Do the same rules apply to everyone? Yes. Is everyone running the same distance? Yes. Is there any discrimination? No. Cool. That's the best you're going to do. Let the chips fall where they fall, and you're not going to get like a perfect, split of the population in every single thing, because people are, on an individual and even on a group level, people are different in many ways. And this sort of forced push for equity, I'm like, stop. It's causing more problems. It's not fixing anything.
It's causing more of a divide.
But it's causing a divide. It's causing problems. It's causing hostility between the sexes, hostility between races, hostility between this and this, because everyone's trying to, we live in this really stupid time where someone just sees a disparity and they imply discrimination, right? They think disparity equals discrimination. Can discrimination cause disparities? Absolutely. But just because something is unequal in the outcome doesn't mean that some discrimination has taken place, right? There's probably 10 times as many male rappers as there are female rappers. Is it because women are not allowed to rap? No. Anyone, go for it. You want to be a rapper? Like, go. Just turns out there's like way more men that are interested in being rappers. Just like there's way more men who are interested in being mechanics and plumbers and construction workers and all that. You know what? There's more women interested in, there's a whole bunch of fields that women are more interested in. Dental hygienists, like teachers, especially at younger levels, nurses, lots of stuff in like PR, HR, all that, female-dominated fields. Where's the do we need to push to force men? It's just, I'm just like, just stop, just leave
chill.
It, just chill, right? That's my thing. I'm just like, I'm the one who's actually liberal. I'm like, yo, like just leave it, like allow it. If there's a discriminatory barrier, then yeah, bring that barrier down. Yeah. If people are being treated unfairly or with prejudice or no, like that's not cool. Right? Treat people as individuals, judge people as individuals, but that doesn't mean you're going to get equality of outcome in everything. In fact, it means the opposite.
And and again, going back to this agenda where it's like, I saw this, remember the woman who was on a city bike, and
I didn't see this thing.
Yeah, it was big. I didn't catch all of it. I saw the tweet and I was like, and the headline was "White Woman Weaponizes Her Tears."
What happened?
So basically she, as it turns out, so it came about.
Can you weaponize your tears?
Yeah, evidently.
Sorry, my brain's getting distracted here. Sorry, go ahead.
They're shooting lasers and shit. I can weaponize my nipples. But I also weaponize my legs, but I don't know about my tears. But yeah, she had, the clip showed her and, like a younger black man fighting over the bike and then her crying about it. But as it turns out, she was like 8 months pregnant, just finished her shift as a nurse, and she had paid for the bike, and then they were trying to take it off of her.
Okay.
And so this little short clip came out, and then all these platforms were like, Karen weaponizes her tears, and this famous attorney chimed in on it, and so on and so forth. And I just thought, my gosh, we are literally coming into an age where everything is like, it legit feels like end times, so, and saying that, like, what would be your closing? Cause I know you're a very busy man, you're a very popular man, and you've got dinner dates and plans and all sorts of stuff. I could keep you here all night, but in saying that, and what you had mentioned in terms of your faith, and what closing statements would you want to put out there to the world? Because I find your content generally, and I can't say generally because I've only just come across it recently, but everything that I've seen has been empowering to people. So what would you say?
The first thing I'd say is something that's quoted in the Bible many, many times, which is do not be afraid. Right? So many people are operating from a position of fear all the time. So many people are just afraid. They're afraid to speak their mind, afraid to share their opinions, afraid to pursue the things they want to, genuinely pursue. Afraid, people are just operating from this position of fear of the future, fear that the globalists are going to take over everything and we'll own nothing and we'll be happy and everything is going to collapse and we're going to eat bugs and we're going to, there's people who have bought into that black pill narrative, just like there were people who thought, this virus was going to kill everybody and, we need
Y2K.
to stay home forever. I was talking about the Rona, but, that too. but there's always a doomsday. There's always doomsday narrative. You got people who are, the climate is going to, we're all going to die because of the climate. I'm like, dude, just stop living in fear all the time. Like, it's not conducive to anything, and it's also typically not rooted in reality. It doesn't help anything. So I think that's the first one. I think the second one is for people to understand, especially if you spend a lot of time online, and even with a lot of the stuff we've talked about, most people are still sane. It's important to remember this, because if you spend too much time on Twitter or in some YouTube or TikTok rabbit hole or whatever, you can think that everyone is crazy and that no one makes sense and everyone's bought into all these narratives and whatever. And then you go outside. And you're like,
right.
Most people are normal. I can talk to most people.
I saw that tweet.
It's true though, right?
Right, it is.
The country's not all falling apart.
No, put your phone down.
Most people are not, black and white people aren't there fighting in the streets. Republicans and Democrats aren't there shooting each other with their AR-15s in the street. Most things are normal. Normal doesn't make the news. Normal doesn't go viral. Right. The only reason I didn't see the city bike thing, but the only reason it even, people are paying attention is, number one, we have the technology to even care about such frivolous things. Right. But also people are seeking to divide one another. Right. People are, especially in this country, people are seeking to divide Americans 100% along racial lines, gender lines, left, right lines, red, blue lines, like all of it. It's a very obvious agenda going on. Right. And there's a lot of juice in it, and there's people profiting off it. So don't fall for every single psyop. And then the last thing I would say is to take care of yourself individually. We can't control everything in the world. We can't control other people. We can't control all these politicians. We can't control the freaking weather. We can't control, right? There's a lot we can't control, but you can control yourself. And actually, it's very difficult to even learn to control yourself, right? And so rather than focusing outward all the time and trying to control, if you can't even control yourself, like what on earth makes someone think they can control everyone else in the entire world, right? Master your own habits. We all know our weaknesses, our addictions, our bad habits, our sins, ways we don't treat ourselves well, the way we don't treat other people well. We're anyone who's cognizant and self-reflective is aware of these things, right? We have our limitations and our issues, and focus on that. If you're overweight, focus on getting down to a healthy weight and being in shape. If you've got some bad habit or addiction that you know is not good for you and for your family and people around you, do your best to break it and replace it with something positive. If you're not as competent or as educated as you should be in something and you need to up your skill and up your value to the world, then do it. If there's a business that you want to start and, you know, you've got this, but you're afraid of that, you know, learn the skills and do it. And that's how you genuinely change the world. I think we can genuinely change the world by making the people in it better. You know, that's what it is. Because what is a society? It's just a collection of people, right? So if each one of us can level up our health, level up our mental well-being, level up the way we treat one another, level up our ability to speak the truth and seek the truth, level up our cognitive abilities, you know, be of more value to one another, however, whatever skills, abilities, experience you have, you can help other people. If we all did that and stop focusing on nonsense all the time and fighting each other all the time, then what would the world look like? You know, what would our communities look like? That's the actual solution. You know, if you're a parent, then, you know, you've got the most important job in the world, right?
Yeah,
like,
step your fucking game up.
You know, like take
Get your 7-year-old off of social media.
Take care of those kids, because, you know, those kids are quickly going to grow up and they'll be adults and they'll be impacting other people. You know, and things positive and negative both ripple outward. Yeah. And so, you know, I think that would be my message, is to you know, yeah, not fear, not live in fear, and to, you know, work on yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. So the better you make yourself, the more people you can help, the more people you can inspire, the more value you can provide to other people, and the more you can be of service.
What a brilliant message. Thank you so much for taking your time to share that. That was incredibly powerful, and quite proud of myself for not jumping too far around without it. What was I talking about? Oh my gosh. I'm learning more about perimenopause, and I'll share more on that and brief you for your next relationship if you happen to be with a woman who's going through that amazing, incredible time of her life. But yeah, truly, truly appreciate it. And that's super sound advice. So I will link all of your books and your podcast and everything that's out there, because it sounds like you have some incredible tools to help people and get strong. So we definitely are, hopefully we'll be in touch and hanging out and changing the game. And I'll come visit you over in Saudi Arabia. Is that where you're going back? Oh no, you're moving to Dubai. Yeah. Moving to Dubai. We didn't get a chance to get into that one. We're going to need a damn part 2. And hopefully the next time you come out, I'll have curbed my cussing just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I think he slowed down towards the end.
I think I did too. Yeah, I think I did too.
You know, a positive influence on you.
Yeah, I'm going to need more of that. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in.